The inquiry into the lockdown days has become a mess. Rishi Sunak is going to go to court over it, and Boris Johnson is making things difficult for the Prime Minister. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the channel that challenges the mainstream media and the political establishment, from the left-wing nutters to the globalist elite. And today it's all about the inquiry. Yes, the lockdown days are all gone, but all the investigations continue. Most of it is about distractions, smokes and mirrors. It's not really going to get anywhere. The whole point of this inquiry that we talk about is not really about scrutinizing lockdown policies in that sense, or the effect of lockdown on ordinary people's lives. It's mostly about how the government handled it, why they didn't call a lockdown sooner, for example. It's absolutely chaotic. But now we have the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who is terrified of what's going to come out of it. So he's essentially resisting in terms of giving out all the information about what happened, including WhatsApp messages from those days. Clearly, he's got something to hide. Clearly, some of the stuff that could come out might destroy his chances when it comes to the next general election. So, in this video, we're going to give you the update on that, and of course, what's going on with Boris Johnson, because Boris is essentially taking his revenge, because he thought, well, if I'm going down, I'm going to take everybody down with me at this point. Okay, so what's going on? Downing Street are not happy. They're going to take the inquiry to court in order to stop themselves from giving out more information. What's the point of an inquiry if you're not going to give out the information? So the Cabinet Office has today sought leave to bring a judicial review. We do so with regret, they say, and with an assurance that we will continue to cooperate fully with the inquiry before, during, and after the jurisdictional issue in question is determined by the courts. Specifically, whether the inquiry has the power to compel production of documents and messages which are unambiguously irrelevant to the inquiry's work, including personal communications and matters unconnected to the government's handling of COVID. We consider there to be important issues of principle at stake here, affecting both the right of individuals and the proper conduct of government. The request for unambiguously irrelevant material goes beyond the powers of the inquiry. Individuals, junior officials, current and former ministers and departments should not be required to provide material that is irrelevant to the inquiry's work. It represents an unwarranted intrusion into other aspects of work of government. It also represents an intrusion into their legitimate expectations of privacy and protection of their personal information. Okay, so apparently, according to this, the key word is irrelevance. Everything is irrelevant. Personal communications, irrelevant. One thing we've learned from British politics over the last few years is that personal communications these days matter, because a lot of the discussions that happen between ministers and between civil servants and all the other officials, a lot of times happen via unofficial routes. Whether it's the SNP administration with Nicola Sturgeon, the way they handle certain meetings that they didn't have really a necessity to take minutes, for example. The diary was missing. Or when it comes to this sort of stuff, I've had Matt Hancock and his WhatsApp messages being leaked by himself like an idiot. And now we have all this. So if there is a way for politicians, like Rishi Sunak, for example, because he's the one who's terrified of these messages to be released, if there is definitely a loophole, and if I were Prime Minister, for example, and if I wanted to discuss work, but I didn't want to get caught, of course I'm going to use my private WhatsApp messages. But that doesn't mean that I should be able to. If you are talking about work by using your personal phone, that is still work. Because otherwise, everybody could just have secret conversations all over the place. And nobody can actually touch you. That's absolutely disgusting. We don't want to create another Watergate in this situation. Now, we got Downing Street, who also are prepared to use taxpayers' money for this court case, despite speculations of massive loss. So they're literally taking the inquiry to court in order to not really present the data that they have to. And they say well, we are actually willing to use the public purse to do so. Isn't it slightly immoral? Politically immoral? I mean, I don't think taxpayer money is there for you in the treasury to be used for those purposes. I'm not really sure if that's good value for money. The whole point of taxation is we give you the money and you're supposed to give it back in services, for example, public services, security, and everything else. It's not there for your court cases. I don't understand this. Right. Now, Boris Johnson, this is yesterday, they said that Boris Johnson handed over his WhatsApps that only dates from May 2021 onwards. He hasn't handed over any messages before then. So May 2021, Boris Johnson got a new phone and he announced the inquiry. But then, this was yesterday. Things have now escalated. Now that Rishi Sunak and his team are going to take, and the Cabinet Office are going to take the inquiry to court, Boris thought this could be a great opportunity to be more transparent. So he decided to actually go back to the inquiry, and he said, I'm going to bypass Cabinet Office and hand over all the unredacted messages directly to the inquiry. So if there are juicy stuff in there, everybody's going to go down, including Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister. So we might actually get some sort of justice, but not really by knowing what happened. So the impact of lockdown policies, the length of those lockdown policies, everything else that happened affecting mental health, the NHS waiting list, and of course the cancer patients, everybody else who missed their treatments. This inquiry is not really going to give you justice over that. What we can get is those who did those policies for different reasons, they might go down. So I'll take a win where I can, I guess, at this point. And the issue with this is that, for example, the opposition party, like the Labour Party and the mainstream media and all the others, you might say they were not the decision makers, so they can just continue their work. But they were the ones who kept pushing and pushing and pushing as well. So it's not just the cabinet themselves, but the mainstream media and the Labour Party and the trade unions and everybody else who kept pushing for more lockdown and more measures like a 10 p.m. curfew or Scotch eggs or group of 6, there should be another inquiry to hold them to account as well. Because these people are in the position of power. They might not have been government ministers that made those decisions, but they defended it, they supported it, and they pushed the propaganda through the mainstream media. So I'm not really happy with this inquiry because it's not really going to focus on the real issues. So hopefully we're going to have something coming out of it that could actually hold everybody to account, including Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner and everybody else in the BBC. But, wishful thinking, right? It's not going to happen. Anyway, we're going to have so many news stories for you guys throughout the day. Make sure to subscribe and share this video. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.